Welcome to Voices for Impact, the podcast. Started during the COVID-19 pandemic and made in Syracuse, Voices for Impact is full of conversations with thought leaders from around the world that have made significant accomplishments in their lives and have gone through their own challenges, but have made it through those adversities and made positive impacts through their work. I'm your host, Danielle Mensing, and as a fundraiser for a nonprofit, I believe the most valuable tool you can give yourself is making a positive impact on others and your community. Every conversation is going to give you tools and tactics from entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, and change makers that will encourage you to develop a growth mindset and reimagine how you can find your purpose. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Voices for Impact. My name is Danielle Mensing, founder of Voices for Impact, and today I am chatting with Daniela Molta. She is a Syracuse native who recently moved back home after a decade of nurturing her career in advertising. She spent the first half of her career working in New York City at advertising agencies and the rest working in San Francisco at Facebook, GoPro, and Netflix. She is also an assistant professor of digital advertising at the Newhouse School at Syracuse University, and she also started a marketing consulting business called CaliYork Consulting, and you can find the Instagram under @CaliYork Consulting. She is passionate about supporting the local Syracuse community and its growth, and her DMs are always open for quick digital marketing advice or bouncing ideas off one another. You can also find her teaching yoga at the Emerson. Thank you so much for having a conversation with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Danielle.
So first off, tell me, what do you love most about what you do in digital advertising?
Sure. Yeah, I think what I love most about digital advertising and just strategy in general is, the ability to kind of analyze data, based on that data, come to some sort of insight, which can be a really creative process. I know when a lot of people think of data, they don't think of creativity, but there is a lot of creativity in that. So coming to that insight, getting to that strategy, and then from there, actually like launching these campaigns. And the most amazing thing about digital media is, again, you have all this feedback and data that you're getting. So then kind of like analyzing what's working, iterating, and moving on. Digital media in general, I just love like the analytics part of it, the creativity that comes with that, and then actually launching these things, seeing how they perform and iterating.
That's so exciting. And that's really what you do when you work with businesses through your consulting businesses. You analyze their data. What's the process?
So it really depends what we're working on and like what the specific strategy is. But I can tell you an example right now. So I'm working with the Community Folk Art Center. They're right in downtown Syracuse. They need some help with social media strategy. So the very first thing that I do when I'm working on a project like that would be, okay, let's come up with a list of competitors. Let's kind of look at what they're doing, seeing how they're performing, seeing where maybe we can draw some inspiration from them. Then I would dive into their analytics. So, looking across all their social channels, like what type of content's working, what's not. And then I also will dive into audience insights. So, one of the great things about social platforms is there's a lot of data and insight around, simple things like from a demographic standpoint, what percent of your audience is male or female? So things like that, digging into that data, and then you kind of bring it all together to come to some sort of insight and ultimately that strategy.
I think that's so exciting, especially people that might be listening that aren't familiar with the digital media side. They might be more familiar with the print media and the other traditional ways of advertising, but that this really is just a whole new world of media and reaching and marketing and reaching new audiences through digital platforms. And data is really a big piece of that. But how you said earlier, creativity really comes through this process of creating digital media campaigns with businesses.
Yeah, for sure. Because honestly, if someone else had that exact same brief, let's say with Community Folk Arts Center, they might interpret that data differently, which would then lead to a different insight and a different strategy. So it really is a creative process.
Yeah. So, what are some advertising tips that you could give to maybe some small businesses that might be listening in?
Oh, I love that. I mean, okay, a couple things, and I talk a lot about this on Instagram. So you can definitely check out tips there. But there are so many resources that are free to businesses, particularly as I just mentioned, like for instance, on Instagram, in the upper right-hand corner, there's that little hamburger menu, like the 3 lines. And if you click on that and you're a business, you've set yourself up as a business account and not a personal account, you can click into insights, and there's a ton of insights on your audience, the content, your followers, like how that growth has been growing. So little things like that, just like getting curious about the data and actually digging into it. So I would say that's certainly one solution, or one tool is the tools that are available to you through social platforms. What else? Outside of that, Facebook Audience Insights is a tool from Facebook. Again, it's a free tool. You just need a Facebook account. And with that, you can start to kind of, let's say you want to, I don't know, reach people that are travel enthusiasts. You can kind of like build out that audience of travel enthusiasts, and what they will spit back to you is like, okay, travel enthusiasts on Facebook, they tend to look like this demographically, they follow these types of accounts, and this is their relationship status, and that type of information can start to inform strategies that you may employ. So honestly, there's so many of them, but I would just say use the internet, use Google, get curious, try to see what tools are out there, and you'll find that there's a lot.
I have a question about social media platforms. Facebook was the biggest thing, and it's still a big thing, but in the 2010s, right? And then it moved to Instagram, and it seems like we're kind of getting away from Instagram and moving into TikTok as the main platform that people are going to, and even just how people communicate has kind of transformed and is a little different. Could you speak on that as far as what are the best social media platforms to use as a small business? Is it okay to continue using the same platforms, or all of them? Should businesses focus on one more than the other?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. So this is where it comes down to knowing who you're trying to reach. So like for sure, if you are trying to reach a younger, let's say a college student, you might consider Instagram, but you should probably really look closely at TikTok at this point, because that is where they're spending a lot of their time. Versus, let's say you have like an older audience, Facebook might be right for you. So I would say the audience is like one layer of it. And then the other layer is kind of like, what space do you play in, and what types of assets do you have to use? Because, then let's say, I don't know, you have like really beautiful imagery and you have like a lot of great video content. Maybe that's where Instagram makes a little more sense, versus let's say you don't have access to that type of stuff. Maybe Twitter would make more sense because it's more text-based. So there's kind of lots of things to consider depending on, who the company is and the audience that they're trying to reach.
Really good points. That's good information to know. Getting back to you now and you starting your consulting business, what drives you?
Yeah, well, you kind of alluded to it before about, I think now more than ever, what is driving me in terms of the clients that I decide to take on is, I really want to find clients that kind of selfishly align with my interests and are like smaller businesses here in Syracuse that maybe need some extra support. I did just move back in 2020, actually in March of last year. And I just, after working for 12 years at like these big corporations, it was so exciting and I got such great experience. But now I'm kind of just have this renewed focus on like the smaller companies, helping them out, sharing my expertise with them. So that's why I do say, and I really do mean, like, if you're a small business in Syracuse or not in Syracuse too, and you just need like a little tip or a little insight about something, feel free to DM me and I will totally go back and forth with you on that type of stuff, because I really do want to be a resource for businesses, locally here in Syracuse.
That's so great. And just your background of working at Netflix and GoPro, you've learned so much. And to bring that here locally and to help small businesses is such a great asset. So thank you for providing your services to the local businesses that need that help in the digital media realm. So what is one challenge that you've overcome either personally or professionally, and how did you get through that adversity?
Yeah. So this one is an interesting question. I think that, I personally have been pretty lucky, like health-wise and all that type of stuff, where I don't have this like big thing that I've overcome. But more than anything, I think what it is like my own personal hesitations about, applying for a job that maybe I don't think I'm as qualified for, or just like my own head getting in the way. I feel like that more than anything is maybe what has held me back in some areas, or maybe is also what's driven me. Because I think over the years, what I've come to realize is like, these opportunities aren't going to be like handed to you. You actually have to put yourself out there. So like, get out of your head that, you're not right for that role.
That imposter syndrome, right?
Yes, exactly. And just go for it. And what I've found is that people are pretty generous, like with their time. And, now my new motto is like, any company I want to work for or person I want to talk to, I just reach out to them. And if they don't get back to me, then they don't get back to me. That's fine. But like, as long as you make that effort, that's kind of where like doors start to open up.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. I think so many people suffer from that imposter syndrome and getting in their own way when they have so much to give, and like you, so many skills and knowledge that you can spread on to others. And so I think that's a really great piece of advice of just getting out there, taking that first step, just because someone says no now or they don't answer now doesn't mean that they might not answer in the future. So taking that step, that's some good advice.
Yeah.
My next question is, what do you think is like a skill or a characteristic about you that you think has allowed you to reach those goals and dreams in your life?
Yeah, well, one thing here that is kind of interesting, in all the roles that I've had, there is kind of like a very set feedback loop. Like 2 times a year we do formal 360 reviews, like you get reviewed by all of the people on your teams. That's kind of been a process that I'm very used to, and the consistent feedback that I get every single time is like, it's such a breath of fresh air that Daniela is really thoughtful and like thinks before she speaks, like that type of feedback, which I think just having more of that kind of like thoughtful approach has really helped me to stand out in some of these companies where I think, there's like very outgoing people and they speak a lot. And I've been able to almost like differentiate myself by not doing that. And it's funny because for me, it's not that yes, I hope that I am being thoughtful, but I think more than anything, sometimes I'm like analyzing things in my head and like thinking about how I want to approach questions. And, all of that has in some way, shape, or form always shown up in reviews and always in a positive light. So I think that is one thing that definitely stands out to me.
Yeah. And just piggybacking on what you're saying a little bit here, being thoughtful of other people. And especially I think when you're working in a corporation and there's a lot of big personalities and they like to hear themselves talk and they're not waiting for the other person to share maybe their idea and have that back and forth is, a buzzword comes to mind is that emotional intelligence and thinking about other people. And that's a big thing. I think companies locally and big corporations are talking more about and promoting more of people need to have that thoughtfulness and that emotional intelligence of how they come across to other people and how they speak to other people. Because in the end, I think that helps the organization to grow further.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for sure, the more voices you can hear, the better, right? So I think, yeah, you're 100% spot on that.
And it's a great characteristic of yours to have. So to you. My last question for you is, how do you define success?
How do I define success? So this is one that I think has definitely changed over time. I will say, you know, I think like first when I got out of college, like it was all about like making enough money that I felt comfortable. Like it was very money driven, I think. And, you know, I think over the past, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years, I've been fortunate in that I have been able to work at companies that pay pretty well. But it started to shift my mindset that like, you know, that's not what it's all about. And now it's much more about, you know, I just want to, at the end of the day, feel good about the companies that I work for, and the businesses that I'm supporting. So, you know, certainly when you move to academia, like everyone told me in the interview process, they're like, heads up, you're not going to make nearly as much money. And that is 100% what the situation is now. But I feel just like much happier at the end of the day in terms of supporting students and, you know, getting to pick these small businesses that I work with and supporting them. So for me, success is, you know, like feeling good about the businesses that I'm working with and the work that I'm doing at the end of the day.
Love that. Great answer. I actually have a final question. I said that was my last question, but this really is. Where can
No.
people reach out to you? How can they get a hold of you if they're a small business looking to get some help in digital media and advertising?
Yeah, sure. So I would say maybe the two best ways would be one, through Instagram DMs. Like, you know, I try to keep up with that for the most part. And then like if email is your preferred route, Daniela at CaliYork Consulting would be my email address. You can hit me up there and we can chat about it. I will say that I kind of take on clients based on the ebb and flow of just the workflow. And, you know, my primary job right now is being a professor at SU. So as you can imagine, that means like summers are much more free, winter months are much more free. But I'm always down to talk to people. And when I can't take on a client, I always have like a little roster of people in the back of my head that I can refer them to. So keep that in mind too.
Awesome. This is so great. Well, thank you so much for giving us some insight into what you do and your story. I really appreciate it, Daniela.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you guys so much for watching and listening. Voices for Impact is on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, as well as several podcast platforms. So please follow and subscribe to stay connected. And I will see you next time on Voices for Impact. Bye, everyone.